Today we're going to show you how to rebuild a Senco M1 M2 M3 staple gun. This is a T-nailer, same gun. You can look at the model number. Senco M3 T-nailer, staple gun, etc. This rebuild also applies to the SFN series finish nailers. These are about 40 or 50 years old. I was using these when I was in the construction business in 1970s and 80s. But these guns are built like a fortress, and there's only a couple of parts inside that wear, and you can buy parts on Amazon, but they don't quite fit, especially the cylinder seal. So I'm going to show you how to deal with the cylinder seal. There doesn't seem to be anything on eBay or YouTube that deals with dealing with the cylinder seal. So the rest of it is just a bunch of O-rings, and it's really not a problem. So stand by. Alright, so in order to work on this gun, you have to take off these 6 Allen head screws, which is a piece of cake. I've already rebuilt this gun, but I'm going to show you how to do it and what I learned, because there doesn't seem to be anything on YouTube or the internet that deals with the Chinese sealing ring that seals the top of the piston. I think they 3D print them, and they're close to the configuration of the sealing ring, but they're not quite. So this is what you'll see when you pop the cap. Under here is the trigger, the part that sends the air behind the piston. There's a little valve in here. There's a little piston and an O-ring, a couple O-rings that can be replaced, and that's pretty trivial. I'm not going to get into that. But this ring right here seals against the top of the piston. And it moves up and down. This has to move up and down within this cylinder. So this ring, when it comes from the vendors on Amazon, is too wide, and it doesn't push down in here. So you have to shave off the outside edge, and I'm going to show you how to do that. If you happen to have a lathe, I don't know how else to do it, but it has to be just a fairly tight fit in here. If you have to force it, it's not going to work properly. And the rings that I got, the seals, were fit too loosely on this metal part, and so I had to put, you can see this, there's silicone behind there. I had to put silicone behind it and then let it dry up for a couple of days so that it sealed correctly between the metal holder and the seal. Everything else in here is just O-rings, and if it feels like it's relatively tight, then don't worry about it. This is the most important part, and I'll show you what happens to the original seal when they fail. Alright, so here's what the original seal looks like. This is very brittle. It just kind of breaks in little pieces. So here's the original sealing ring that went on this unit, and it got brittle over 50 years. I don't know what kind of plastic was made, but you can probably see the profile here a little bit. This is what goes in the cylinder, and this is what seals the top of the cylinder. And this is what that profile, this particular one, happens to look like in cross-section. But the ones that come from Amazon or eBay, wherever you happen to get your parts, have a profile like this, and when you put it in the cylinder, this part here gets all jammed up. So you really have to trim this portion off, which is right along this edge here. And if you don't, it's not going to work. It's going to get hung up. So I'm going to show you on the lathe how I did it. And if you don't have a lathe, there may be some other way. I'm not really sure. But other than that, it's just not going to work. Now what I did is I chucked a piece of 2-inch pipe in my lathe and just slipped the O-ring around it. And it should be tight. If it was the original, it would be very tight. But this happens to be loose, but it doesn't matter in this case. I set the lathe to turn very slowly. And then I used the die grinder to trim off, flatten this edge out. It was sharp when it came from the vendor, but I used a sanding disc and turned it on the lathe and flattened out this edge. This across here should be approximately 0.240 inches or 240 thousandths. So that's how I fixed this ring so that it works in the machine. Maybe your ring may come with this part already flat, but mine didn't, so I'm just showing you. So what you do is you take this ring, this seal, and you put it on here, and you put silicone on the inside of here, slide it on, wipe all the silicone, excess silicone out of here, make sure you don't get any in here, and let it dry overnight. This ring should be just a little proud of the metal fixture that it's sitting in. And once you do that, it's ready to assemble. So I've got the trigger valve out, and you can see that there's 2 O-rings on here, one in here and one here. This O-ring here is very important. It should be tight around this metal. And there's a spring down here. This is the trigger spring. There's an O-ring here, there's 2 O-rings here, and you basically just slide it down. All the way down, put the spring in. Push this guy down. Hold it down so it doesn't come out, it might fly out. Put this assembly back in. Put your screws back. Now your gun may be dirty on the inside, so you may want to pull the cylinder actually comes out. You'll see that it just slides out and there's a couple O-rings on it. You may want to put this in the parts washer and clean the whole thing out before you reassemble it. I did, and I think it made a world of difference. And then put all the screws back in. This is just a redirector for the air, the exhaust air, so that it doesn't blast you in the face. There's no seal around between these 2 metal parts of the casting. That's all handled by the O-rings and the and the cylinder seal. So there's no gasket there. That's all there is to it. We'll connect it up to some air. Alright, let's connect it up to the air line. No leaks. No muss, no fuss. Bingo, bango. You can see it's advancing. Problem solved. These are really heavy-duty guns. They're heavy. I think this thing's probably about 10 pounds. Made in the 70s or 80s, and all you have to do is reseal them, and they're like brand new. But it's very important to put the proper cylinder seal on there, otherwise it will never work properly. And this one was leaking and hissing and misfiring, and it's a done deal now.